This is a real gem. This is on loan to us. I've had it with me for almost 12 years. It's a great portrait of Federico Gonzaga, the first Duke of Mantua, painted by Titian, one of the most famous artists of the Renaissance. The reason why it's so special is that these kinds of paintings at this quality and this level are pretty much all locked up in museums, and this is owned by a private person. It's the third portrait that Titian painted of this man in 1539, 1540. And so this picture was lost since the 1930s when it was bought by an American. It was on the cover of Art News in 1931. It had come from a famous collection. It was well known by every historian of Titian. And then it went to Reading, Pennsylvania, of all places. There was a family, a manufacturing family that bought it for what was at the time would have been millions of dollars from a famous collection in Budapest. And one of the interesting dilemmas with this picture is that an article was written in 1938 after it had come to America on a variety of Titian portraits, and the famous art historian who knew this picture very well said, well, there are a series of letters that are supposed to be associated with the commissioning of this picture, but they can't be related to this because this man, Federico Gonzaga, died 2 weeks after receiving the letter asking for the portrait to be made. So they said, well, we don't know what it is. They never said it wasn't by Titian, but they said it can't be the one associated with these letters. Well, after 9-10 years of the research and finding out that, in fact, the dates on the letters were published wrongly. Oh. They are, in fact, from a year and 2 weeks before Federico Gonzaga died. And in many ways, it's turned the fortunes of this picture around. It was in a big show in Paris, and it's been very highly regarded since then. Exhibitions of old master paintings either only go to sort of the big museums, or they're very expensive, but they just don't happen very often. But this collection was called in art and auction the most important newly formed old master painting collection in all of Italy. Now, some people have said to me, oh, Velázquez never painted models, or the preparatory sort of proportionate and full color studies for larger pictures, but in fact, he did. What's interesting about this is when you go to the Prado Museum, this is not exactly how you see the picture today. When you look at it today, it has big strips that were added in the 18th century to the sides. And someone once said, well, this is just simply a copy. And there's a number of telltale reasons why it's not a copy from the 19th century. One, it's been relined twice. It's on 17th century canvas, and so it's been relined with new canvases twice, and that wouldn't happen if it was only maybe 100 years old. You were asking about the permanent collection. We have about 4,000 works of art total, and we're very happy that we've added over 500 works in just the past 3.5 years or so.
Wow. You need some more space so we can see more of them.
Well, that's for sure. We're working on that. But there are things that came to the college before the museum was ever developed. The museum's only 25 years old, but we had things being given to the college since as early as the 1720s in terms of certain portraits and stuff. So while the museum boasts some famous portraits by the first artists that came to the colonies, we also have the last painting by America's first great artist,
Wow.
John Singleton Copley. This was done when he was dying, and it's believed that maybe his son finished it, but it's recorded and it's in the big catalog, Raisonné. It's sort of loosely titled A Battle at Dunkirk, which there were many. This is believed to be a skirmish between French and British troops from about 1793. And it was given to the college in the 1930s. But I think you see here a real wide variety of figures and types, and it moves in and out as the action sort of unfolds, and it is really, really one of the great gems. We have a group of American paintings on loan from the Owens Foundation. These are intermixed with some of our own works, but here's another real gem here. This is a portrait of William Short by Rembrandt Peale, probably the first family of great artists. Charles Wilson Peale, Rembrandt Peale, Rubens, and Raphael Peale. Charles named all of his sons after great artists. But the portrait of William Short, he was a classmate of Thomas Jefferson's at the college, and went with Jefferson when he became the ambassador to France. And later Washington named him a diplomatic exchange, and he really became the sort of first career diplomat. But here he's shown in front of a classical temple. We don't believe he ever went to Greece, but they would have known about the excavations at Pompeii and Herculaneum. And there were lots of prints by people like Piranesi who were widely collected. And so you see him in front of this classical temple, which says a lot about him, making that choice to be placed in front of that versus maybe a countryside or a building or in a room. So the notion of classical learning and those kind of gifts that come from that. But this came to the college in the 1930s from the Short family, and it really is one of the great pieces in the collection.